Russia was vicious, jealous, and cruel, and there's a reason historians call her reign a dark era. She tormented her own family, terrorized her quarters, and displayed a thirst for blood beyond even Russia's most infamous tsars. So, when her brutal end came, the symptoms of her illness were both extremely gruesome and incredibly fitting. Russian history has not been kind to the Empress Anna. Historians call her time on the throne a dark era, and one minister coined it as comparable to a storm-threatened ship, manned by a pilot and crew who are all drunk. These are pretty harsh words right from the get-go, but as you're about to find out, they were all too true. Anna's father was Tsar Ivan V, who co-ruled Russia with his brother Peter the Great. The little girl was born into privilege, but behind the scenes the family was hiding a dark secret. Anna's father, Ivan, a.k.a. Ivan the Ignorant, was severely mentally disabled, and certainly couldn't run the country, leaving most of the work to Anna's uncle, Peter. However, it was so much worse than people thought. Maybe it's no wonder Anna didn't turn out to be the most socially adjusted person in history. Her father's mental disabilities often left him in a vegetative state for hours on end, and he very frequently couldn't even walk without leaning on his quarters. Not exactly a strong parental or genetic support system for Anna. Even as a young girl, Anna started showing disturbing signs following in her father's dysfunctional footsteps. Everybody in court knew her as a spiteful child with a chilling mean streak, and many people commented on her lack of manners and vulgar attitude. In February 1696, tragedy struck the Russian royal family. The feeble and feeble-minded Ivan V kicked the bucket before he even hit the age of 30. Once more, he now left his 3-year-old daughter Anna, fatherless and nearly alone in a fierce and competitive Russian court. And then again, there was her mother to deal with. Anna's mother was a battle-axe, if there ever was one. Having somehow endured the rigors of her marriage to Ivan the Ignorant, she was deeply religious in the old Russian ways. She raised Anna and her 2 sisters in a strict environment that prized feminine virtue and domestic habits. Well, at this point, we now know what Anna is going to rebel against. As Anna matured, she didn't get prim and proper like her mother wanted. She got bloodthirsty, she was an avid hunter, and she had an extremely decadent way of getting her vicious fix. Anna reportedly kept a rifle by her window just so she could pick it up and blast away at the birds on her lawn. On other days, she got servants to unleash wild animals in the royal park so she could go and hunt them down. Everyone who knew Anna personally was well aware of her cruel nature, but you wouldn't know it to look at her. But your Thomas Carlyle very flatteringly called her chubby cheeks comparable to Westphalian ham. When Anna was still a burgeoning young woman, her family moved to St. Petersburg. It was a total revelation. Instead of her mother's Spartan living, St. Petersburg was full of splendor. The sheltered girl took the decadence of high society like a duck to water. It also meant she had a whole new city of men to meet. In 1710, Uncle Peter did Anna a solid and engaged her to Frederick William, the Duke of Courland. Though Anna was supposedly a grim, mean little piece of work, she was pretty pumped at the prospect of marrying the Duke, even writing to him that nothing could delight me more than to hear of your declaration of love for me. It's too bad they were doomed for a heartbreaking end. Oh, sure, Frederick and Anna started out well enough. When Anna married the Duke, she did not skimp on the style. Since the 17-year-old had expensive tastes, her uncle gave her a whopping 200,000 rubles for her dowry. But that was really just the beginning. Anna also looked resplendent in a golden-broidered cape and a bedazzled tiara. Only 2 days after Anna's big ceremony, her uncle Peter the Great put on a second ceremony. Only this one was completely bizarre. The Tsar staged a copycat, fake wedding, with 2 dwarfs acting as the groom and the bride. While the rest of the court looked on, this elaborate joke was a luxurious affair. But why? Well, while Peter the Great's parody of the wedding doesn't sound too funny, it also may have hidden a cruel secret. According to the experts, Peter's farce was actually intended as a commentary on Anna's rude manners and crude behavior, holding a mirror to the ugliness inside her. And if that wasn't bad enough, Anna's new husband, Frederick William, was quite the drinker, and during the wedding reception he tied more than a few with Peter the Great, even engaging in a drinking contest with the Tsar of all Russia. Sounds like fun times all around, right? Wrong. See, Frederick William lost the contest in the worst way possible. This being Imperial Russia, the men took their drinking extremely seriously, and Frederick overdid it big time. The groom got so sloshed he felt brutally ill within just a few days, and then he passed away. Yes, that really happened. A hangover killed Anna's husband. Suddenly, Anna didn't have a husband anymore, and she did not react well to the news. With Frederick's tragic and ridiculous end, Anna was a teenaged widow, and she could barely handle the idea of her domestic bliss getting ripped away from her. So she resorted to drastic measures. Almost immediately afterward, Anna began looking for husband number 2, with Frederick still warm in the ground. But she was in for a big disappointment. You can't say Anna didn't try to join the Second Wives Club. In order to find herself a man, the Russian princess wrote over 300 letters to various family members, begging them to put out their feelers and throw single men in her path. Yet for one reason or another, Peter the Great rejected all her suitors. And after her ominous start, Anna never married again, although she soon had bigger things to worry about than weddings. In 1730, Anna's life took a surprise turn. After Peter the Great passed, the Privy Council turned her into the Empress of all Russia. This wasn't the greatest compliment, though. They liked her because she was widowed and childless, so less likely to cause trouble. Did that work out for them, though? Not at all. Almost as soon as she became empress, Anna started stirring up trouble. In particular, she ignited a vicious family feud with her incredibly beautiful cousin, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, the daughter of Peter the Great, wasn't just a looker. She had also been a rival for the throne. So when Anna came out on top as empress, she didn't just make Elizabeth bend the knee, she practically destroyed her. As a chubby-cheeked widow who couldn't seem to find herself a husband, Anna didn't look on Elizabeth or her legendary beauty kindly, and she stoked their rivalry to disturbing heights. After the deaths of a series of family members, Elizabeth's marriage prospects plummeted, and Anna was all too happy to help quash them further. She made it very clear that no nobleman could marry Elizabeth, and meanwhile, if Elizabeth chose a commoner, the Empress would strip her of her titles and her claim to the throne. And that's not even the worst part. One day, while having to look at Elizabeth's face in court, Anna tried to bait a Chinese minister by asking who was the most beautiful woman in the room when the minister pointed over to Elizabeth, obviously, and a nearly blue gasket. That's when she started plotting her revenge. People at court had eyes, so even while Elizabeth couldn't marry anyone, she did start a steamy relationship with a strapping sergeant named Alexis Shubin. Although it was a strictly bedroom relationship with no hope of marriage, Anna eventually found out, and her response was bitter. Take heed. Do not cross your jealous cousin if your jealous cousin happens to be the Empress of all Russia. When Anna found out about Elizabeth's side piece, Alexis, the unhinged empress, ordered her men to cut out Alexis's tongue, and as if that weren't enough, exiled him to Siberia for the rest of his miserable life. But if you think this was the end of Anna's debauchery, hold on to your seats. Just because Anna never remarried didn't mean she was ready to mingle. She took several lovers, but her most infamous one was a German duke. There was one big problem, though. The duke himself was married, though that didn't seem to matter too much to either of them. Besides, there was one reason he was perfect for her. Anna's illicit match with the German duke was made in heaven, or rather hell. Just like Anna herself, the Duke was infamous for his cruelty and his weakness for decadence. While they were together, he kept rooms just as lavishly decorated as hers, and controlled the court through terror, bribery, and egotism. The Empress's tryst with the Duke raised eyebrows, but there might have been an even more scandalous side. Some experts believe that Anna and the Duke also had a secret love child together, but they didn't stop there. They raised the child, a son, in the Duke's household as if he was his wife's child, just to keep it all top secret. Now, Anna didn't limit her hatred to her cousin Elizabeth. She also utterly despised a quarter named Prince Michael Golitsyn. One day, she dealt him a cruel and unusual punishment. She forced him to become a court jester. But not just any court jester. Get this. Poor Prince Michael had to pretend to be a chicken for the Empress's pleasure. She had him sit in a nest within her reception room, and whenever anyone came to visit, he had to mimic laying eggs. Now, as a confirmed bachelorette after her husband's tragic Lucy end, Anna delighted in making matches for her quarters instead, as if living vicariously through other people could repair the massive hole in her heart. She was so obsessed, one Russian historian even called her the national matchmaker. Eventually, Anna turned her skills toward her most hated quarter, Prince Michael, and he did not thank her for the results. Anna woke up one morning and decided to force the prince to marry one of her attendants, mostly because the bride-to-be was a lower class, older maid, and reportedly not a beauty. But that was just the beginning of the nightmare. Anna gave the prince and his new bride a lavish wedding, just like the one she had. But also, like her own wedding, it came with more than a few cruel twists. First off, after the ceremony wrapped up, Anna placed the prince and his new wife in a cage, dressed them like clowns, and paraded them on top of an elephant. She then wound the elephant through the streets of St. Petersburg, just so the crowds could laugh and jeer at the couple. In honor of Prince Michael's wedding night, Anna gave him an extremely disturbing gift. She had constructed an entire ice palace for the honeymoon, complete with ice beds, chairs, and even an ice fireplace. Sounds pretty cool, except she then made them both sleep there on an extremely cold night in the middle of winter in Russia. Just before shedding the prince and the poor maid in to face their chilling fates, Anna gave them a crude piece of advice in what she probably termed good humor, but most would call deranged rambling. She reportedly advised them to get doing the dirty with each other if they wanted to keep their bodies warm enough to stay alive. Well, they ended up finding another way. The prince and the maid did manage to survive their icy ordeal, but only through an ingenious plot. Anna decided to trade one of their wedding gifts, a pearl necklace, for a much more practical sheepskin coat from one of the guards. According to folk legend, the couple then went on to live happy lives, but the truth may be much darker. Although they managed to stumble out of Anna's ice palace the next morning still breathing, they weren't out of the woods yet. According to historical records, it's likely that the prince's bride succumbed to pneumonia a few days after the debacle, giving Anna what she probably wanted all along. Except, don't worry, the Empress's downfall was coming. Anna was particularly notorious for her craft sense of humor. Her vicious jokes could drop the jaws of even the most hardened and world-weary quarters. Now, thanks to her mother's stern belief in traditional education for women, Anna only got bare-bones instruction and had little understanding of the intellectual world. This led to a shocking oversight. In this age of enlightenment, many historians believe Anna was functionally illiterate. Although, who needs boring books when you have people to humiliate? Anna had some severe limitations to her power when she first became empress. According to the Declaration of Conditions that the council forced her to sign, she couldn't declare war or peace, levy taxes, or even spend money without their consent. But as soon as she had secured her power, Anna did away with the whole council, sending the men either to the scaffold or Siberia, then carried on as an absolute monarch. Interestingly enough, the day that Anna rid the council, a blood-red aurora borealis appeared in the night sky, aka the Northern Lights. But instead of believing this was a sign of her divine right, many people who knew the unhinged Anna personally took it as an ominous sign for the future of her reign. Now the Empress was sour on a lot of things, but she did love the arts. She helped to introduce subjects like theater, architecture, and journalism into Russian higher learning, and also laid the foundations for the world-famous Russian ballet tradition. In fact, the first public performance of ballet in Russia happened in front of her. Lest you think Anna was all torment and terror, she did do a lot in her reign to improve Russia's architecture and waterways. She built a canal, bolstered the Russian navy, and completed many marvelous buildings in her time as Empress. However, her last years were pretty dark. Last, fittingly, for all the torment she inflicted on others, Anna met a slow and painful end. The final years of her life were utterly gruesome. She developed an ulcer on her kidneys and suffered from agonizing attacks of gout. The Empress couldn't help but realize she had precious little time left, and she needed to set her affairs in order. One of the biggest problems about Anna's failing health was that her lover and confidant, the German Duke, kept needling her to follow his own dastardly plan. Namely, he wanted her to announce her 2-month-old grandnephew, Ivan VI, as her successor, but make him regent, functionally giving the Duke all the power he had so long sought. Now, on October 17, 1740, when Anna was just 47 years old, she finally succumbed to an excruciating kidney stone that worked its way slowly and painfully through her system. Just before she passed, she did indeed name Ivan as her heir, and the German Duke as his regent. But just after she passed, the well-laid plan backfired. First, since Ivan was only 2 months old, he couldn't really call men to arms to defend his toddler throne. Second, pretty much everyone in her court hated the German Duke, and they weren't about to let him take power. His regency lasted a pitiful 3 weeks, at which point a rival captured him and forced him into exile. As for baby Ivan, well, in the end, none other than Anna's old enemy and cousin Elizabeth